So my name is Luanjiao Aggie Hu. I come from China, but right now I'm studying in the US. I'm a PhD candidate in international education policy, and I'm interested in education, disability, and gender studies. So today I'm going to share, I did choose research during COVID-19 with disability, but I will focus more, like in this presentation, I may share one of the research, which focus more on women with disabilities. So first, a quick overview of COVID-19 in China. The coronavirus pandemic really surfaced in Chinese media in January this year, and then the cases peaked in February. But then it seems to come to an end in March, specifically I think March the 9th, and there were altogether over 80,000 cases. And by the time I took the screenshot, I think September the 11th, over 90% of them recovered. So my research with women with disabilities during COVID, I did this research in March, April, and May. What I did, I studied the narratives, the stories that's collected by women, like disability organizations in China and also some international organizations. So there were altogether over 30 narratives from different women with disabilities. Most of them are Chinese women. And also I look at the literature on women with disabilities. In the literature, they often talk about how women with disabilities are multiple disadvantaged, or multiple like they experience multiple oppression because of gender, disability, or sometimes because of the poverty status. And also in the COVID-19, we see the domestic violence surges in different countries, in Singapore, in China, in France. And then people with disabilities are often more affected in humanitarian crisis or public health crisis like this. So from all these narratives, I study them and then summarize. There are several themes that emerged from these stories. One of the major categories was their women with disabilities. They express that they feel they have higher risk of infection and mortality. Some women, they need to use assistive device, or they rely on personal care, and then that increase their exposure with extra service, or just rely on contact with other people. And then other women talk about, because of some of their underlying conditions, they feel, okay, if I'm contracted with the virus, I'm not sure I can survive. There's another major category. It's about access to healthcare services. A lot of women with disability, they talk about their fear. Okay, what if I get infected? How can I get to the hospital? Is it accessible bathroom in the hospital? Things like that. Here I put a picture. This is a Taiwan disabled woman, and this picture showed when she was getting in line to getting tested for COVID. And then in the hospital, there was no accessible bathroom or accessible transfer device. So she had to stay in the hospital overnight, but stay just in her wheelchair. There's also access to information issue with access to information, access to different supplies, because initially, a lot of information on the news about COVID-19 was not accessible to a lot of people with disabilities. There were no closed captioning in the news or sign language interpreters. So there's a delay for people with disabilities to get information and then purchase the protective supplies or hygienic supplies to protect themselves. And then some other people talk about, okay, since people buy online a lot of stuff to store and then to prepare themselves, stay at home for a long time. And then because China implemented some very strict lockdown policies, and then delivery men cannot deliver things to the disabled people's doors. And then this created a huge barrier for a lot of disabled people, and they cannot carry stuff on their own. And then if they live all by themselves, they really have, that's a dilemma for them. like the previous presenters also talk about the financial impact and economic insecurity that happens in China as well. A lot of visual impaired people with visual impairment, they're in the massage industry, or some of them in tourism industry, and those industries are hugely affected. Many women or their family members who support this disabled women, they lost their jobs, and then during COVID, they have reduced income, but then they also have to purchase protective gears, and that really creates some financial difficulty for them as well. But then I also, like in the stories, I also find something that's beyond like the literature often don't talk about, is how disabled women also serve many other roles during crisis or in their communities. I read about how women with disabilities, they serve as customer service personnel during COVID-19, when there is, a lot of people go online shopping, and then that create a huge demand for online customer service. And then other women talk about, during COVID, because I'm working on the front line as an essential worker, I feel I'm as capable as other non-disabled women, and that makes them feel like empowered. And then I also find like there are local deaf women who support their local communities because there's a lack of accessible information. So there are sign language teachers who make informative videos in sign language, and then share that out. And so here in this slide, I share this picture with this deaf woman who made the videos, and then her video gets shared by public accounts and then reach millions of people in China. There are also women who have physical impairment, and then during COVID-19, they are caretakers for their children at home, and then they may serve as tutors to support their students during like online teaching, online learning period. So some of the reflections I have, I will end with this in the presentation. There's a limitation about the narrative stories that I studied because there is possible censorship. Like if the stories are too bad, it may not get published in this organization's account. And then I see there's a lack of research on violence against the women with disabilities in COVID-19, and then we have lack of information about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Also, I found that COVID-19 really highlighted a lot of deep-rooted like isolation situation people with disabilities already experienced prior to COVID-19. Some women talk about, okay, this pandemic doesn't affect my lives that much because prior to the pandemic, my life is just staying home. I'm almost a stay-at-home expert, and I can provide emotional support for others who are now stay at home because of the lockdown policies. But then I realized, okay, this is actually very problematic because of the inaccessible environment, and then also some of the attitudinal barriers in their society. And then I also want to highlight that despite a lot of challenges that people with disability face, a lot of women with disabilities or in the disability community, they come together and they play many different roles to support the people around them. There are caretakers, they're essential frontline workers, they're community organizers, and they're volunteers, community members. And I want to invite everybody to, reflect on the question that how can we make sure in our, crisis, how can we make sure our response can be more responsive to, or more inclusive to all people. So I invite more questions. I feel like 10 minutes is a little bit short time, and I wish I can share more. Thank you.